Violence against women was deemed a national emergency earlier this year. Although a large portion of violence happens in the home, the UN reported that among young women, 86% said that they had been sexually harassed in public spaces, and 81% of women feel unsafe walking alone at night in the UK.
I live in London, so I don't think I feel safe anywhere. I think public transport is a massive issue. I think walking down the street in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night, I'm pretty sure it's everywhere. I mean, I'm cautious if I'm just walking around and there's no one around, even if I'm in a library or if I'm in a gym or if I'm in anywhere.
Charlotte Woodward, Head of Training and Development at National Centre for Domestic Violence, shares the biggest issues she believes are currently contributing to women still feeling unsafe in public spaces today.
I think you only have to look at the kind of manosphere and the online spaces that are inhabited by young men at the moment, figures such as Andrew Tate, even figures such as politicians, not just across the pond, but in other countries, and including this one in recent history of men that significantly demean women.
There is a direct link between online misogyny and the rise of physical threats faced by women. By the end of 2024, the Metropolitan Police recorded 133,000 stalking offences, nearly a 10% increase from the previous year. But according to the Crimes Survey for England and Wales, many of these crimes go unreported. Earlier this year, the UK Parliament introduced the Crimes and Policing Bill, which aims to halve the level of violence against women in a decade. The bill strengthens measures against stalking, but is it creating effective change?
The legislation is there to protect women, and it's strengthened every year or two. We've just had a whole load of employer law changes that will further protect employees from sexual assault and sexual harassment. And yet it doesn't really seem to be making a huge amount of difference. And I think it has to come from society itself.
Men need to actually do more than what we're doing, because even though we're doing something, all women know they're not safe. All women know they need to do this stuff. And we do. I don't know any woman that doesn't walk around with keys in their hand as they're going home or anything like that. But if you're walking around like that and a man's coming to attack you and other men are just walking down the street, I mean, things are going to happen. So really, everything needs to change. Men need to step up. Women need to take more active interest in this stuff. Unis should be doing self-defense classes, which I tried to make my uni do, and they said no.
It's clear that further change needs to take place, but is law enforcement doing enough?
So if you asked 10 women that question, they would all have had a different response, ranging from absolutely excellent to really not good at all. Yeah. So, and I think that's what we need to move away from, this sort of postcode lottery or even individual officer lottery. And we know from recent events, such as Sarah Everard and others, that there are police officers that are out there who are at a risk to women, too many of them. And that's really scary, because these are the people that are meant to protect us.
I was one of the women that tried to hold a moment of silence for Sarah Everard, and the police forbade us from doing so. So we ended up raising £600,000 and fighting them for our human right to protest in court. And in that whole process, became a campaigner for women's safety and police reform.
Jamie Klingler has continued to fight for women's safety. This is how her journey started.
By the time Sarah was killed, I was running an events company, so I knew how to contact the police and how to contact the council and make a safe space for women to grieve and be together. I hadn't hugged my best friend, I hadn't seen anybody, and I was furious that they were telling women that the only way to keep themselves safe and alive was to stay in their own homes. So I tweeted about a vigil and had no idea or expectation of the maelstrom that would follow. But actually having the Met try to silence us activated me. And if you're not going to let somebody that looks like me protest the death of a young woman that one of your serving officers killed, who are you going to let protest? Everything I learned about how much the police are more concerned with getting things off of headlines rather than actually making women any safer, that it's become my life's work.
Despite 1 in 4 women being subjected to some form of sexual violence, Cambridge Rape Crisis Centre found that 5 in 6 women don't report it to the police, and those that do find themselves with a 50% chance of their case resulting in a conviction.
The court process in itself is harrowing. It's not something I would want to put myself through.
Our lives, our bodies were not treated as worth caring about or protecting, except within the regards of as a daughter, as a wife, as someone else's property. We're not seen in our own right as worthy of importance and respect. The weaponization of language has really, really taken away girls' and women's rights and our safety. And I think the only thing I can hopefully hang my hat on of the last 4 years of being successful is that conversations that women used to have at 4 a.m. drunk, we now have within ourselves and with our fathers and with our brothers and our partners at dining room tables. And I think that especially in the last 4 months with Giselle Pellicott, shame switching sides, I never gave myself permission for not to feel like I got myself into those situations. It was my fault. It was that I should have had my wits about me better. I should have predicted how somebody's behavior would change on a dime, rather than placing the blame where it belongs, and it doesn't belong with us.
Research shows that the demand for self-defense classes has significantly increased over the last few years. Joanna has been coaching self-defense for 10 years and practicing martial arts for 20 years. She speaks to the rise of interest in classes.
We've seen a big increase in the last few years, and I think it has to do with everything that the media is telling us. So an increase in crime, specifically in big cities like London. So it's not only raised awareness, but also made women feel that there is a need to talk about safety.
So this has really like reaffirmed that knowledge of like, oh, you know what, actually, I got this, like I can do it. But also, I think it's kind of sad at the same time, because even the fact I have to do this, and even though I'm doing it and I feel confident in it, I'm still at the point where I'm like, okay, but if there was actually a man doing this, like how good is this going to be realistically?
I wouldn't call it a solution. I would call it a confidence tool that can help women find the power within them to do things. So teaching boundaries, teaching awareness, teaching de-escalation. And it's just basically a confidence and empowerment tool. But the real solution is to find the root cause of violence against women. And that will require a systemic change. And this is a long-term strategy. So while we're striving to do everything in our power to change that, I think that self-defense still remains as a great immediate response for women to take action in order to protect themselves. It's not just physical solutions that we teach. We also run courses that teach about awareness, about being able to recognize red flags and predatory characteristics. We run certification courses that teach exactly that.
With the rise of the Me Too movement and growing public awareness of violence against women, the conversation around safety has never been more urgent. Aside from self-defense, what else can be done to make our streets safer for women?
One of the things I really do advocate for is the bystander training. When men have had bystander training, they are more likely to intervene if they see somebody in trouble. But it also helps them to do that safely, so they're not putting themselves at risk, because of course men are also at risk of toxic masculinity.
I personally would love education in every school where both girls and boys learn these strategies, but I'm not just referring to physical strategies. I'm more into psychological strategies, to give them the tools to teach them about consent, about boundaries, about what it means to say no, and also give them a little bit more of confidence into the awareness how to deal when the threat or bullying is present.
Women are being forced to learn how to protect themselves, not because it's fair, but because it's necessary. To implement real change, we need to teach boys and young men to respect women, manage their anger, and understand empathy. We also need to address the rise of online misogyny, which continues to fuel physical violence. Until change is made, women will continue to fight, not just for safety, but for the right to exist without fear.